Okay, I did make all the corrections on chapter 21. There were a number of those, but I will admit that once I start writing, often my fingers don't work as fast as my brain, and my brain is probably not working right anyway, but I did fix it. So now we're on to chapter 22. This is after the perfect game. At dinner after the game, Charles and Cassandra invited Bobby and Diane over on Saturday morning for brunch at 11. Cassandra wanted to work with them on a short piece they could play together when Cassandra presented her world premiere composition in Schwartz Auditorium at Cornell University in 3 weeks. She was ready with her composition, and her friends at the symphony were coming over on Sunday to play it with her for the first time and then make any changes that she wanted to make. They probably didn't need to practice, as they could all sight read any piece of music put in front of them. But this was a big deal. The Masons let Diane's parents take the kids over to the Millers, as they wanted them to see the Miller house and be as shocked as everyone else when they saw it for the first time, and they were. Bobby and Diane knocked on the large door, and Charles answered in his very nice dark maroon robe and some leather slippers. Cassandra was right behind him, but fully dressed for their workday. Charles admitted that he was in his study doing some paperwork and listening to music and lost track of time and apologized for his robe. The kids did not see any need to do that, as it was Saturday and he should do as he pleased. I knew there was a reason I liked the two of you, Charles stated with a laugh. Come on in. Bobby and Diane headed off to the parlor where the Steinway B grand piano was kept, and Cassandra had 3 music stands, all set up from the night before. She had laid out the charts for the 3 performances on stands and asked them to get out their instruments and get them ready, which they did. Cassandra said she wanted them to try to play it a couple of times, and then they would go off into the smaller dining room off the kitchen where breakfast was waiting for them. Bobby and Diane looked at the sheet music, and it didn't seem too hard, as they were playing somewhat secondary parts, more harmony to what Cassandra was going to play. She did not want to overwhelm them for the first time they played together and make their university performance too nerve-wracking. It would not be. She also said that the kids to take the music home and practice it together to get more comfortable, but that she had no doubt that they could handle it. Bobby's sight reading was getting better, and Diane was already very good. They picked up their instruments and began to play their parts together, and not a note was missed by either player. The music was only about 4 full pages long and had 1 repeat of the first 2 pages, so it was not too difficult. She applauded when they were finished. Very nice, said Cassandra to Diane and Bobby, very nice. Then they all played together, with Cassandra having a much harder part, but not really for her, but the 3 of them together sounded sublime. Charles walked in fully dressed in slacks and a dress shirt with a sweater vest, and was surprised at what he heard. That sounds remarkable, he stated firmly. You 2 young people are becoming very good young musicians in such a short time. Your high school years are going to be something for everyone to hear, he added. Thank you, said Diane. We are trying, and Bobby seems to have not missed any time the way he is playing, she added. I have a hard job keeping up with you, Bobby added. Well, you are, added Cassandra. This is going to be so much fun. Let's try it one more time and then go have some breakfast, she added. They began playing on her downbeat, and off they went. The music was very nice and played well by everyone. Okay, let's eat, said Charles. I'm starving. Off they went into the small dining room off the kitchen and had a very nice breakfast of scrambled eggs, French toast, OJ bacon and sausage, coffee for Charles and tea for Cassandra, and some pastries if anybody wanted one. The kids also poured some small glasses of milk. They all sat and enjoyed their brunch. It was clear that the Millers were enjoying the company of young people in their home again. It had been a while. That was meaning as much to them as it was to the young musicians, and they all had a great time. Mr. Miller offered Bobby, "You might consider a small recording setup here at your home so Mrs. Miller could record her practices and her friends' performances when they come over." "That is a great idea," stated Charles. "Would you help me with that?" he asked. "Well," stated Bobby, "you have a wonderful Nakamichi Dragon cassette deck recorder player already, and all you would need is a small mixer, some microphones, a couple of mic stands, and you'd be ready to go at it, Bobby. I would think that Mrs. Miller would love to hear herself practicing." "I think that's a great idea," said Cassandra. "Charles, can we do it today?" she asked. "We certainly can, Mother," he added. "Bobby and Diane, would you stop at the music store with me and help me pick out some recording gear after our brunch?" he asked. "Of course we would," said Bobby. "We would love to do that." "Okay then, let's eat up and we'll hit the road," said Charles. "Mother, do you want to go with us?" Charles asked. "No, you go ahead and I will stay here and clean up and get ready for when you come back," she added with a smile. "You all go on now," she finished. They all finished eating, but not in a real hurry, and then headed out the front door to Charles' Mercedes, and they were off. They had left their instruments as they were, and they had full intention of recording their new pieces with Cassandra when they got back. Once at Cook's, they were greeted by the owner, who recognized Bobby and Diane right away. He shook Charles's hand. "Mr. Cook, this is Mr. Charles Miller, and we would like to buy some microphone stands and a mixer to do some recording at his home," stated Bobby. "Mr. Miller," stated Mr. Cook. "Your wife is not Cassandra from the symphony?" he asked. "Why, yes, she is," Charles replied with a big smile. "Yes, and that she is," he added. "Well, I'll be," said Mr. Cook. "This is an honor, sir," he stated. "Well, thank you," said Charles, "but all I do is the driving to and from the Symphony Hall, so I can't take any credit for her wonderful playing," he added with a laugh. "Anyhow, what can I do for you?" asked Mr. Cook. Bobby spoke up. "We need some very nice recording equipment so Mrs. Miller can record herself and her symphony friends whenever they like," Bobby stated. "Okay," said Mr. Cook, "but since we're talking about some symphony class players, we should look at some very nice gear. Is that okay with you, Charles?" asked Mr. Cook. "That would be fine, so let's make it nice, as we will be recording these two fine younger players from time to time," added Charles. "I'm going to use my Nakamichi Dragon cassette deck to record with," he added. "That is great," said Mr. Cook. "I would recommend a pair of nice omnidirectional condenser microphones used in a stereo pair, spaced about 27 inches apart, on stands about 6 to 7 feet above the performers and 5 to 6 feet in front of them. The players could be seated either in an arc or a straight line left and right, as they choose. This will give some nice natural reverb of the room you have. The taller the ceilings are, the better the reverb will be," he added. "I would recommend a pair of German Neumann KM183 Omni mics, which come in a stereo pair for $1,400 a pair. They are probably the same mics used in your symphony hall, as they are superb mics for superb players. Your recordings will sound as good as the ones the symphony engineers make," he added. "A nice pair of stable mic stands will go 7 feet high max and are $50 a pair, and some nice cables will be $100 for a 100-foot pair. This way, whoever does the recording can be by the recorder and not in the room disturbing the performers and the guests, he recommended. Finally, we will need a little Tapco 6306 mixer. It's stereo, and that's $250. And that will take the output of the mics and send them into your Nakamichi Dragon for recording. Since it's stereo, the person doing the recording can control the levels and pan the images left and right and anywhere in between, and will make all the difference. Plus, your Nakamichi is a state-of-the-art recorder, and that is a huge help, added Mr. Cook. Bobby, what do you think? Asked Charles. Well, Mr. Cook has set up Diane and I with some nice recording gear for our home practices. Not this nice, but his advice is working out well for us, so I am in, stated Bobby. We can get Dave Johnson from the university radio station to help us set it up all properly, added Bobby. Okay, wrap it up, said Charles. It looks like my wife is about to have some real fun, he added. Mr. Cook went to the back of the store, pulled out the stands, the cables, the Tapco mixer in the box, and pulled the Neumann mics out from the locked display cabinet up front. Bobby guessed at that price the Neumann should be locked up. He was most excited to hear those microphones. He included a nice pair of Sony MDR 7506 headphones and a nice pair of 6-foot RCA cables to go from the mixer into the Nakamichi deck at no charge. Charles paid with his American Express card, and Mr. Cook helped carry it out to the car. Everything went into the trunk except for the Neumann mics, as they were not leaving Bobby's sight. You might have thought he had the Hope Diamond in his lap the way he cradled them. All the way home you could feel the excitement building. Bobby was really pumped to hear his first recording off this gear. When they got back to the house, Bobby asked to use the phone and needed the phone book. He looked up the university and then the radio station number and dialed. 5 rings later, Dave was the one who answered the phone as he was filling in for somebody until 2 p.m. He told Dave what they had and asked if he had time to help them set it all up, which he did once he heard who it was for and what they bought. He said he would be over about 3 p.m., and Bobby gave him the address. Bobby thanked him big time. Charles told him that Dave Johnson, manager from the station, was coming over to help set up the gear at 3 p.m., and Charles was most pleased. Charles found a nice, smaller mahogany table and a matching chair they could set up by the audio gear in his study to get ready. Bobby carefully unpacked the Tapco, the mic stands, the cables, and left the Neumann mics in the box. He would wait for Dave before opening those up. Charles asked if they could record in his office for the first time today, and Bobby agreed, as it would make the maiden recording easier today. Bobby went in the other room and got the mic stands, and he and Diane brought their instruments back down to Charles' study. Cassandra was out talking to her neighbor over the fence and then headed inside when she saw them arrive back home. Dave Johnson from the radio station will be here at 3 p.m., announced Bobby. Can we try and record our practice of your work one more time and see how it sounds? He asked Mrs. Miller. I was hoping you would ask, she said with a smile. I would really like to hear us on Charles' nice stereo, she added. So would I, said Bobby. This is going to be fun, he said with great excitement. Diane gave Bobby a big hug. This is so much fun, she added. Everyone could not wait for Dave to arrive.